As I read aloud, your job is to follow along and annotate. Passage 1. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. An Uncomfortable Bed by Guy de Maupassant. One autumn, I went to spend the hunting season with some friends in a chateau in Picardy. My friends were fond of practical jokes. I do not care to know people who are not. When I arrived, they gave me a princely reception, which at once awakened suspension in my mind. They fired off rifles, embraced me, made much of me, as if they expected to have great fun at my expense. I said to myself, "Look out, old ferret, they have something in store for you." During the dinner, where the mirth was excessive, exaggerated, in fact, I thought, here are people who have more than their share of amusement, and apparently without reason. They must have planned some good joke. Assuredly, I am to be the victim of the joke. Attention! During the entire evening, everyone laughed in an exaggerated fashion. I scented a practical joke in the air, as a dog scents game. But what was it? I was watchful, restless. I did not let a word or a meaning or a gesture escape me. Everyone seemed to me an object of suspicion, and I even looked distrustfully at the faces of the servants. The hour struck for retiring, and the whole household came to escort me to my room. Why? They called to me good night. I entered the apartment, shut the door, and remained standing without moving a single step, holding the wax candle in my hand. I heard laughter and whispering in the corridor. Without doubt, they were spying on me. I cast a glance around the walls, the furniture, the ceiling, the hangings, the floor. I saw nothing to justify suspicion. I heard persons moving about outside my door. I had no doubt they were looking through the keyhole. An idea came to my head. My candle may suddenly go out and leave me in the darkness. Then I went across to the mantelpiece and lighted all the wax candles that were on it. After that, I cast another glance around me without discovering anything. I advanced with short steps, carefully examining the apartment. Nothing. I inspected every article, one after the other. Still nothing. I went over to the window. The shutters, large wooden shutters, were open. I shut them with great care, and then threw the curtains, enormous velvet curtains, and placed a chair in front of them, so as to have nothing to fear from outside. Then I cautiously sat down. The armchair was solid. I did not venture to get into the bed. However, the night was advancing, and I ended by coming to the conclusion that I was foolish. If they were spying on me, as I supposed, they must, while waiting for the success of the joke they had been preparing on me, have been laughing immoderately at my terror. So I made up my mind to go to bed. But the bed was particularly suspicious looking. I pulled at the curtains. They seemed to be secure. All the same, there was danger. I was going, perhaps, to receive a cold shower bath from overhead, or perhaps, the moment I stretched myself out, to find myself sinking to the floor with my mattress. I searched in my memory for all the practical jokes of which I have ever experienced, and I did not want to be caught. Ah, certainly not, certainly not. And then suddenly bethought myself of a precaution which I considered insured safely. I caught hold of the side of the mattress gingerly, and very slowly drew it toward me. It came away, followed by the sheet and the rest of the bedclothes. I dragged all these objects to the very middle of the room, facing the entrance door. I made my bed over again as best I could, at some distance from the suspected bedstead, and the corner which had filled me with such anxiety. Then I extinguished all the candles, and groping my way, I slipped under the bedclothes. For at least another hour I remained awake, starting into the slightest sound. Everything seemed quiet at the chateau. I fell asleep. I must have been in a deep sleep for a long time, but all of a sudden I was awakened with a start by the fall of a heavy body tumbling right on top of my own. And at the same time, I received on my face, on my neck, and on my chest a burning liquid which made me utter a howl of pain. And a dreadful noise, as if a sideboard laden with plates and dishes had fallen down, almost deafened me. I was smothering beneath the weight that was crushing me and preventing me from moving. I stretched out my hand to find what was the nature of this object. I felt a face, a nose, and whiskers. Then, with all my strength, I launched out a blow at this face. But I immediately received a hail of cuffings, which made me jump straight out of the soaked sheets and rush into my nightshirt into the corridor, in the door which I found open. Oh, heavens, it was broad daylight. The noise brought my friends hurrying into my apartment, and we found sprawling all over my improvised bed the dismayed servant who, while bringing me my morning cup of tea, had tripped over this obstacle in the middle of the floor and fallen on his stomach, spilling my breakfast over my face in spite of himself. The precautions I had taken in closing the shutters and going to sleep in the middle of the room had only brought about the practical joke I had been trying to avoid. Oh, how they laughed that day. Number 1, based on paragraphs 2 and 3, it can be reasonably concluded that the narrator, A, prefers to associate with people who are serious, B, worries that his companions will not treat him with respect, C, enjoys when witty strangers play tricks on him, D, doubts the outwardly friendly nature of his friends. Number 2, reread the sentences below from paragraph 5. During the dinner, the mirth was excessive, exaggerated, in fact. I thought, here are people who have more than their share of amusement, and apparently without reason. They must have planned some good joke. Assuredly, I am to be the victim of the joke. Based on its use above, what is the most likely meaning of the word mirth? A, humor, B, appreciation, C, attention, D, kindness. Number 3, read these sentences from paragraph 8. I heard laughter and whispering in the corridor. Without doubt, they were spying on me. I cast a glance around the walls, the furniture, the hangings, the floor. I saw nothing to justify suspicion. What central idea is supported by these sentences? A, within the chateau, the dark environment heightens the narrator's fears. B, hearing lots of laughter can cause many people to feel uneasy. C, the narrator's friends have been inside of his room to prepare their prank. D, the narrator is unnecessarily anxious about his friend's motivations. Number 4, which statement best summarizes the central idea of the text? A, tricking someone can quickly become dangerous instead of amusing. B, it can be difficult to develop trusting relationships with new people. C, sometimes a person can be his own worst enemy. D, problems can be solved in unusual and creative ways. Number 5, which detail from the text best supports your answer to question 4? A, when I arrived, they gave me a princely reception, which at once awakened suspicion in my mind. Paragraph 3. B, the shutters, large wooden shutters, were open. I shut them with great care and then drew the curtains, enormous velvet curtains, and placed a chair in front of them so as to have nothing to fear from outside. Paragraph 10. C, then, with all my strength, I launched out a blow at this face, but I immediately received a hail of cuffings. Paragraph 15. D, the precautions I had taken in closing the shutters and going to sleep in the middle of the room had only brought about the practical joke I had been trying to avoid. Paragraph 17. Number 6, what effect does the point of view of the story have on the reader? A, the point of view creates humor by showing how the narrator's friends misunderstand him. B, the point of view increases suspense by limiting the reader to the narrator's understanding of events. C, the point of view raises the reader's sympathy for the question the narrator faces. D, the point of view adds to the reader's mistrust of what the narrator reports. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answers for the open-ended response on the separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the separate answer document will be scored. Answer the following question about an uncomfortable bed. Number 7. How does the narrator change throughout the story? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your answer. Passage 2. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. April Fool, The Purpose of Pranks by Benedict Carey. Keep it socially acceptable. Stop short of total humiliation, and if possible, mix in some humor and maybe even a fake call from the person's new boss. A good prank, of course, involves good drama, but it also requires emotional awareness. You want to play on people's weaknesses or dislikes, but not go too hard, said Tommy Doran, a fireman in Illinois. When he was a rookie fireman, he was lured into the station's kitchen and struck with multiple cream pies. For me, it's just the sort of dark humor we use to cope with the job and each other. Nothing dangerous or illegal. Psychologists have studied pranks for years, often in the context of harassment or bullying. Yet anthropologists have found that practical jokes are far more commonly an effort to bring a person into a group. Practical jokes are an important part of rituals around the world intended to balance success with humility. And recent research suggests that the experience of being tricked or duped can stir self-reflection in a way few other experiences can. These experiences function as a check on pride or ignorance. The 1960s prankster Abby Hoffman reportedly divided practical jokes into 3 categories. The bad ones involve cruelty or deliberate rudeness. Neutral tricks are similar to physical punchlines. These include wrapping the toilet bowl in cellophane, or positioning a massive pumpkin on top of the school, or altering a writer's keyboard, though that can quickly turn bad if the writer is on a deadline. What Hoffman called the good prank, which humorously mocks human fears or failings, is found in a wide variety of coming-of-age rituals. According to Edie Turner, a professor of anthropology at the University of Virginia, the Diribi of New Guinea, for example, have children make a small box and bury it in the ground. They are told that after a while a treasure will appear inside, but they must not peek. The children always look inside, only to find human waste. The Ndembu of Zambia have an adult in a monster tank sneak and scare the wits out of boys camping outside the village as part of a coming-of-age ritual in which they are showing their bravery. These kind of tricks are very common, Dr. Turner said. They are really a way to put a person down before raising them up. You're being reminded of your failings even as you're being honored or taught. Jonathan Wynn, a cultural sociologist, said pranks serve to maintain social boundaries in groups as various as police departments and school clubs. And you gain status by being picked on in some ways, he said. It can be a kind of flattery if you're being brought in. In another article, 3 psychologists argued that the feelings created by being duped, anger, self-blame, and bitterness, work together to create an uncomfortable kind of self-awareness. A person would ask himself, how much of a fool am I? Where are my blind spots? As humans, we develop this notion of fairness as part of our identity, and of course, it's extremely important in relationships, says Kathleen DeVos, a consumer psychologist at the University of Minnesota. Dr. Voss proposes that the fear of being tricked causes reactions in a range from silliness in some people to hypervigilance in others. Being duped holds up this mirror to people, Dr. Voss said, and may in fact show them where they are on the scale, too trusting or too vigilant. When it goes too far, deep fear can harm relationships. Thinking about how an embarrassing event might have turned out differently is known to psychologists as counterfactual thinking. The feeling of, I should have known better, is the sort of counterfactual thinking that serves to highlight your own flaws, said Neil Rose, a psychologist at the University of Illinois. A good deal of research has shown that counterfactual thinking can inspire new behaviors and ultimately self improvement. Those observations may not leap to your mind if you fell for the email message announcing you had won an award and should forward a draft of your acceptance speech to your boss. But a good prank is, in the end, an imitation of a crisis and not the real thing. It serves as a valuable reminder that not every precious box contains the treasure you might expect. Number 8. The author supports the claim that a good prank, of course, involves good drama, but it also requires emotional awareness. Paragraph 1. By A. Sharing details of how people from many cultures respond when they are tricked. B. Referencing how different scientists draw conclusions about pranks and their effects. C. Describing specific pranks he experienced that were both intense and exciting. D. Tracing how the effect of pranks on relationships has changed throughout the history. Number 9. The main purpose of paragraph 7 is to A. Introduce another example of what a good prank can look like in everyday life. B. Restate the impact of the coming of age rituals described in the 2 previous paragraphs. C. Summarize the differences in how Hoffman and Turner characterize pranks. D. Preview a new theory about how jokes can either be helpful or harmful to children. Number 10. Reread the following text from paragraph 11. Being duped holds up this mirror to people, Dr. Voss said, and may in fact show them where they are on the scale, too trusting or too vigilant. Why did Dr. Voss use the phrase holds up this mirror in the paragraph? A. To show that Voss believes people are concerned with how they look. B. To reveal how people must look deep within themselves to plan the best pranks. C. To imply that people need to spend more time imitating others. D. To suggest that Voss finds self-reflection an important exercise. Number 11. Which statement best summarizes the central idea of the text? A. When used well, pranks allow people the opportunity to reflect on and potentially improve themselves. B. The best pranks challenge young people to improve their behavior by observing their elders. C. There are 3 types of pranks that psychologists study: good, bad, and neutral. D. By observing how different people react to pranks played on them, you can determine that person's emotional awareness. Number 12. Which evidence from the text best supports your answer to question 11? A. You want to play on people's weaknesses or dislikes, but not go too hard. Paragraph 2. B. And recent research suggests that the experience of being tricked or duped can stir self-reflection in a way few other experiences can. From paragraph 3. C. What Hoffman called the good prank, which humorously mocks human fears or failings, is found in a wide variety of coming-of-age rituals. Paragraph 5. D. Thinking about how an embarrassing event might have turned out differently is known to psychologists as counterfactual thinking. Paragraph 12. Number 13. What advice would Neil Rossi likely have for the person who experienced the situation outlined in paragraph 13? A. Ask for additional information. B. Seek help from others. C. Learn from the experience. D. Allow yourself to feel ashamed. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answers for the open-ended response on the separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the separate answer document will be scored. Answer the following question about April Fool, the purpose of pranks. 14. How do paragraphs 5 and 6 develop the author's purpose? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your answer. Directions. Use both an uncomfortable bed and April Fool, the purpose of pranks to answer questions 15 and 16. Number 15. What conclusion would the psychologist Dr. Voss from April Fool, the purpose of pranks likely draw about the narrator from an uncomfortable bed? A. In the future, the narrator should work hard to develop relationships based on more trust. B. The narrator has developed a deep fear of his friends, and this will damage their relationships. C. Experiencing many tricks from his friends has caused the narrator to become overly cautious. D. The narrator needs to reflect on his own behavior to determine why his friendships are changing. Number 16. What is the primary difference between 2 passages? A. While April Fool's author Benedict Carey establishes himself as an expert on the subject of practical jokes, the narrator of An Uncomfortable Bed is just learning about the effects of these tricks. B. An Uncomfortable Bed focuses on how practical jokes affect relationships, while April Fool's explains the effect of jokes on an individual person. C. April Fool's summarizes research about pranks from a few different sources, but An Uncomfortable Bed presents research from only one source. D. The narrator of An Uncomfortable Bed describes a memorable experience, while Benedict Carey includes scientific theories about how people respond to pranks.